everyone, my name's Karen. I'm a diabetes dietitian. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I thought I'd do a session on carbohydrate counting for recipes. Now it's often a question I get asked by parents of children with diabetes and by people with diabetes themselves. How do I carb count my favourite recipe, particularly families who love to do baking with their children? Well, today I thought, let's just show you. I'm going to cook some muffins, bake some lovely muffins with a recipe that I just got off the BBC Good Food website, so fingers crossed it works. So let's go through and I'll show you how I would carb count that recipe so that you can work out how much carbohydrate will be in each individual muffin. So here are all the different ingredients in our muffin recipe. Now some of these ingredients need carbohydrate counting and some actually don't have any carbs in them. So can you work out which is which? For practical purposes, I don't carbohydrate count oil. I wouldn't carbohydrate count the eggs. You don't need to carbohydrate count the baking powder. And you don't need to carbohydrate count the salt. So now we're left with only 4 ingredients which we need to carbohydrate count. Much easier. We have our milk, our flour, our chocolate chips, and of course we have our sugar. Now if you're not sure, of course, if a food has carbohydrates in or not, and that's okay, you know, when you're new to this, it's all about learning. So the first thing I would suggest is looking in the Carbs and Calories counter book. We can look up eggs. Eggs, 114 to 116. Here we go, you can see that an egg, a boiled egg, 0 grams of carbohydrate, fried egg, 0 grams. So when you're using it in a recipe, you don't need to worry about adding carbs in. So here we go, I've written out my recipe and I have identified which of these foods need to be carb counted and I've marked them in pink there. Here you can see I've written out the amount of each of these foods and here we've got the amount of carbs. So let's have a look and see how I arrived at these numbers. It's our old friend, the carbohydrate counting equation. So let's take that green circle, which is 7, divide that by 150, which was the total weight under the picture, or volume in this case, times that by our total value, 250 ml of milk in our recipe. That gives us the answer 11.6 recurring, which I will round up to 12. 12 grams of carbohydrate. Here's a lovely page in the Carbs and Calorie counter. If I turn to page, I think it's 76, there is a section all about cakes and baking, and I find these values very, very useful because they tell us per 100 gram. So if we have a look here, caster sugar per 100 gram weight is 100 grams of carbohydrate, which just means that if you've got 250 grams in your recipe, as we do, you can just say, well, it's 250 grams weight, but it's also going to be 250 grams of carbohydrates. You can also look on the pack. So here's the sugar that I'm using, and you can see per 100 grams for carbohydrate, 99.95 grams, basically 100. Let's take another look at that recipe that we did. And here you can see I have all the amounts of all the different carbohydrates worked out for my milk, my sugar, my flour and my chocolate chips. And I add those 4 numbers together and that gave me a total of 637 grams. So you just divide the total carbs in the recipe by the number of portions that you're going to make. In this case that's 20. So 637 divided by 20 and that gives you 31.85, so you can round that up to 32 grams of carbohydrate per delicious muffin. Now here we go. I'm not the world's greatest cook, which I should probably be embarrassed about as a dietitian, but there we go. I don't bake ever so often, so I'm sure if you want a baking tutorial, you can find loads of those on YouTube. This is really about how to count the carbs in the recipe so that you can feel confident that you're going to give the right amount of insulin. It was at this particular point in the recipe where I realised I was going to need a much bigger bowl. Now don't forget, if you're carbohydrate counting fruit, for example, you're making a banana muffin or a muffin with dried fruit instead of with chocolate chips, then you're also going to need to carb count that because fruit contains carbohydrate. Once you've gone to all this hard work, of course, I recommend that you write down the amount of carbs that's in every single recipe that you like to make regularly. That means that you don't have to do the maths every single time. So you can see I had great fun making a right old mess here. And sometimes people worry that, one of their muffins might have more chocolate chips in than another, and that's going to therefore affect the carbohydrate count. And the truth is, it will a little bit, but it will be such a small bit that it's very unlikely to make a huge difference to your blood sugar levels. So all we can do when we're cooking from scratch is work out how much carbohydrate each muffin should be and take it from there. Right, time to pop the muffins in the oven. Let's go. And there we go, finished muffins. Now, I'm quite happy with these. I did burn one or two of them, and I'm definitely not going to be appearing on Bake Off anytime soon, but I had lots of fun making them, and let's be honest, that's what baking's all about, isn't it? Having fun with your kids, having fun with your family. So I hope that you found the carb counting part of that easy enough to understand. I do think that it comes down to practice. So once you've done it with one recipe, it does get easier for each recipe that you do thereafter. In fact, I could even say, there's muffin to it. Boo! Apologies, that was a terrible pun. So don't forget you can do this for your other recipes which are savoury as well, so things like tuna pasta bake or Yorkshire puddings, you can also carb count those. Right, thank you so much for joining me. It's high time that I tried one of these, in fact. Not too bad. I give myself a 7 out of 10. Please stay tuned for more sessions on carbohydrate counting and other things. If you have any questions about carb counting recipes, please do ask in the comments below, and I wish you happy baking. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.